Okay, you guys, this is Dr. Wes, and I am very Matt. I'm humbled. I'm honored to have you on the podcast. This is Mohawk Matt, and before I go in and give kind of a big intro, I'm going to let you do mainly your own intro, but I want to kind of tell people how we even connected to begin with.
Go for it. Go for it.
Dude, I've been kind of going out on a whim, and there's a lot of people that I follow on social media that I feel like are doing beautiful work, that are sharing their heart and their soul and being honest about their journey on this earth and what they've been through and endured and using their journey to help other people. And you're one of those people, man. So I saw your interview on Soft White Underbelly, and then I'd see you pop up all the time in tattoo community. And I got a couple homies here in Atlanta that tattooing and that ritual and that craft has been a part of their upbringing and their sacred kind of culture. And so, but dude, you're all over tattoo culture, homie.
Yeah.
So like, I'd be like, who the fuck is that guy? Who's that, man? And then come to find out you do modeling for different brands.
Yeah.
Big part of representing Sullen and the clothing brand and the lifestyle brand. But anyways, Matt, I'm grateful you're here. I feel like your story is brilliant and beautiful and can help so many people. So let's just dive in, man. I'll let you kind of lead the way and just start with you.
Okay. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, California. Kind of a middle-class family. Dad's a Vietnam vet. Mom worked she was a telephone operator for most of her whole life and actually retired from doing that job when we actually used to have people answering phones and not these robot systems we have now that screw everything up. I kind of grew up pretty decent. I was one of those white boys that watched Boys in the Hood as a kid one too many times and kind of got drifted over into that lifestyle, even though I really didn't have a clue about it.
Dude, you know my favorite part of Boys in the Hood?
What?
There's this one fucking moment where the dad, the old school dad, who's just he's
where he's giving the speech in the abandoned plot.
He's laying on the couch.
Oh yeah.
And he's got these, dude, and he's just stressed out. You know, his son's violent and all the shit's going on. And I saw these and I was like, what are those, man? And I was maybe like 12 years old and I was like, Mom, I got to find those meditation chimes. And so we ended up going. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember that spot in the movie. I remember watching that movie and just kind of like, you know, I got into graffiti where I grew up really, really young, and I really, really enjoyed it. I played sports and stuff, and I played soccer and baseball. Baseball ended up being really good for me. But I was one of those kids that was really, I don't want to say the word confused, but I was in a bunch of groups, in graffiti, sports, kind of smart, but a bad kid. I was into gothic punk rock and hair metal, if you could figure that out. So that was
what was your favorite shit, man? When you go back and you look at your music catalog, what were you mainly listening?
Well, look, lately me and my girlfriend, we're both into I'm really big into that gothic 80s, like whether it was punk rock or new wave. Like I got Depeche Mode, one of their songs tattooed on my hip. I love Depeche Mode.
What do you got tattooed?
I have Blasphemous Rumors and a big heart on my hip.
Come on, dude. Depeche Mode, even when they did, and you know, Own Personal Jesus, but then they had People Are People, so why should it? Like nobody can. And then Depeche Mode did Ultra. Even their later shit, I love, man. But like The Cure, Smiths,
the Cure, the Smiths, Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, 45 Grave. There's like a lot of old 9 Inch Nails. I was really into that, like stuff like that. Susie and the Banshees, stuff like that. So I was into a little bit of everything, and I kind of avoided drugs most of my life. I didn't really touch drugs till I was 21. But like I said, the graffiti for me was, I got enmeshed in that, and I was really good at it, and it evolved. And if anybody, Atlanta's kind of, I want to say it's a little similar to LA from what I understand, and like the culture and like the gangs and stuff. They might be different labels for their gangs, but they're basically the same thing. And what we had going on in the 90s was a bunch of graffiti crews that were getting pretty big and prominent. I was a part of a couple of those. And as the years rolled on, the graffiti crews got more serious, started acting like gangs. A couple of my friends killed somebody, so our graffiti crew had to join an actual established street gang. Which in LA, being a white boy who's into Depeche Mode, riding a skateboard and doing graffiti, joining a gang that was predominantly Mexican, that was a huge culture shock for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I got involved and I did it. I fell into peer pressure because I knew in my heart told me don't do it. My heart told me, Matt,
How old were you? How old were you at that?
I was I don't know, 16, 14, 15, somewhere. I don't remember the exact date, but I was somewhere in that age.
And you remember though, man, you remember your heart being like, man.
Yeah, that's what I remember, that more than I remember how old I was when I made the transition, because gang lifestyle, it seemed cooler than it was before you get into it. And then when you get into it, you realize, whoa, this is serious. Like, this is not you could get killed walking your dog. This isn't a joke. And the gang life in LA is pretty, like, despite what everyone's going to say in the world, it's racially motivated. It's a territorial motivated. And again, me being a white boy that's into this stuff, evolving more into a gang lifestyle was pretty rough. It was pretty, I had to get used to things I wasn't used to, things I didn't want to. And my inner gut was screaming at me the whole time that, man, you made a bad choice.
Yeah.
And throughout the process, yeah.
It makes me think of the military, man, because it makes me think that the gang wars were going on. And once you join, you're in, and you're a foot soldier for an army that you're basically like, look, man, you got orders and you have to go do these orders, and you are part of this tribal community where it's like you don't have much of a choice, man.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, because it's just like that. And I tell people a lot, because I've done a lot of these shows lately where they're always like, well, what about when you guys kill innocent people? And well, that's a very misconstrued rumor. Like, gangs don't kill innocent people unless it's an accident, which happens all over America. We don't target innocent victims. Like you said, it's like being in the army and we're fighting we usually stick to our own groups of enemies, which are like other soldiers in this war we're fighting. So
right.
Yeah, we had a whole new list of things to do and don't do, and like rules and regulations, and like show up times and checking out times, and like it was hard. It was hard. And throughout this process, I'm selling drugs. I'm getting older. I was still doing pretty decent in school. I was supposed to have gone and played professional baseball, which I ended up choosing. If I could tell you my first night, whenever I tried drugs, it was so, I had like a couple scholarships to go play pro baseball, and I chose smoking crack cocaine from a kid who'd never smoked a cigarette, drank a beer, smoked a joint. Yeah. My first ever I tried was crack back in the 90s, which was just like everything you could imagine crack was like back then. Yeah. It was immediate. It ruined my life within a space of 1 year.
Yeah. And man, you talk, I was going to back up and say, there's a really unique book by this guy, Sudhir Venkatesh, and it's called Gang Leader for a Day. And he was a sociology student, and he went into Chicago's gang areas, and he was going to pass out a Likert scale survey to learn more about, and they thought he was a rival gang member. They held him hostage for 24 hours, but he ended up befriending these gang members. And they talked about all the cultural history of how before the gangs became necessarily a lot of violence and a lot of drug use, they were organizations for communities. And it grew from that originally. But like, man, as you walk through your love for graffiti, it sounds like it's all social. So like you said, man, it was social connection and the peer relationships. And then fast forward, you're 20 years old, and the crack cocaine use, I mean, that's like prominent times of a little bit after the epidemic. But then it's interesting because I think, and we've talked a little bit about my history and my use, marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, 3 arrests, but a lot of people associate those hardcore drugs with really, really low socioeconomic status, poverty-stricken communities, a lot of abuse, neglect. And it's like, here you were, no drug use until you were almost 20. And so a lot of those prevention programs would just be like, you know, they don't hear stories like that. And I was a late user too. I didn't use any drugs. And there was the war against drugs and Just Say No. And we were drawing posters and cops were coming to the school and showing us what drugs did what. And I was scared shitless until I was fucking 18, 19, and I saw my buddies chopping up lines of crank and meth, and I just became fascinated where I was like, man, that little white substance, and so many people are putting so much energy into it. It was a curiosity thing.
Yeah. I the putting it off till I was 21. I don't know how I did it. I just know that, like, I think I shared with you on the phone the other day, a lot of the drugs that you see commonly done on the streets in front of our citizens today, especially in LA, the homeless problem with the drug addiction, they were frowned upon back then. So, like, even in the gang culture, people commonly misconstrue like that we're just animals and shit, but we're not. We have a lot of strict guidelines and rules that we live by, and like smoking crack was frowned upon. The homies in the neighborhood, we used to have to hide that. That wasn't something we just all get together in the hood on the corner and post up and smoke crack. No, no, no. We're driving miles away out of our neighborhood into a hidden zone under a bridge and buying crack from our enemies because we can't have our people know we're getting it. So it's a secret process of us not letting our people know, because it's not supposed to be like it is today. We had to hide that, not let anybody know, because we could actually get beat up and checked and like disciplined in our neighborhood for smoking crack.
So did that,
like and that's where like the evolution of drugs we were talking today is such a hard thing for me to understand, because they're just out there. It's like back in my day, you used to have to hide it because it was shameful, or you could get checked. Nowadays, it's so people are slamming meth and heroin and fentanyl on the corners in front of women and old people and children, and they're taking up the sidewalks with tents you're living in. It's not fair. It's evolved into this humongously dangerous epidemic.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and now you get, and I told you, brother, about the center and these beautiful sacred youth that we work with. And dude, it's funny because my whole views changed. I'm 40 years old. I got two little daughters, and you know, people used to talk that fear mongering shit of you could go use and try a drug one time and die. And now that's fucking true with fentanyl. It's that propaganda has now become a reality.
Well, that's why I was telling you earlier today when I messaged you. I've been in an argument just about like these companies and these institutions that want to show up to common use drug areas on the street and give them needles and water and deodorant and food, and let them know that they're helping them with their addiction. You don't realize that one hit could murder someone. You giving someone one clean needle, you think you're doing them a service. No, you're not. You actually could kill them with that brand new needle you give them. Like, you don't realize how seriously dangerous the drugs today could kill you one time.
1,000%. And that's where I feel like advocacy and maybe what would be more beneficial is to go pass out Narcan, to go pass out fentanyl test strips.
I mean, you want me to, can I speak plainly on this? Because this is where I talk, where this offends people, but the people who are serious about staying sober get where I'm coming from on this.
Please, brother.
The only solution to this problem is zero help. You want to help the problem? Stop making it easy accessible to buy the needles at Walgreens. The whole theory of let's give them clean syringes so they can stay safe, it doesn't work. You're encouraging it. Stop showing up with these tax-free organizations that help people, bring them food because they're homeless. Stop showing up and giving them clothing. Stop showing up and giving them food and water and supplies, because you don't want to know what you're doing. When I was using, I'm a master manipulator. When I was in my addiction, I could manipulate the shit out of you. And if you were showing up to bring me food and some clean needles, man, why the hell would I stop?
Right.
We're getting used to living on the street, wasting our taxpayers' money, and having all these, no offense, but these hippie people show up, these artsy people that want to help, not realizing that there's a humongous difference in homelessness and drug addiction. When you give an addict anything, if you give an addict even a cup of water, you're doing too much. They need to hit rock bottom, because the only time you're going to look up from that dark hole is when there's nothing left and you're sick and tired. The more help we give them, the longer you delay them saving their own lives, and the more chance the help you give them potentially is killing them.
Yeah. And dude, you mentioned, you know, because I think back to my own use, and you're 1,000% right. And I got homies and brothers that are mentors at the center.
Yeah.
We all have the same story. We only started to take extreme ownership and look at our behaviors and our decisions when everybody in our life had said, look, I love you, but I'm fucking done. I'm not giving you any money. You can't have a car. I'm not giving you a cell phone. I'm not helping you in any way. Now, look, you want to go get clean, prove that you were clean, go into a sober living, do the work that you need to do. Then I'll show up and I'll meet you there, but I'm not going to enable this anymore.
I've been in an argument on Instagram about that topic for like a few days now, and that's exactly it. The only solution is zero assistance. You let them know, hey, when you're ready, I love you and I will be here. But until you're ready, I'm not picking you up. I'm not buying you nothing, not even food. You're choosing to do drugs. I know that we're in our disease and we're in our addiction, but the bottom line is it's still a choice, whether it's subconsciously or consciously. You're still choosing to be on that corner slamming drugs. I'm not going to help you with anything until you're ready.
And Matt, you bring up a great point, because it's not like avenues for them to get help don't exist. Anywhere around the world, you got AA, you got NA rocking. Any night, you can walk into that fucking group of people completely free, no money, and you got a community that will say, "Come on in, let's get you a cup of coffee."
You can not only walk, you can walk into any meeting hall in Los Angeles, whether it be AA or NA, and ask for help. You could. There's so many treatment centers that deal with the county insurance and the funding, that help is there.
Yeah.
The problem is these people are complaining that it's not there because they can't make money off it. Help doesn't come with your facility making money.
Yeah.
Help comes with desperation. Absolutely. And there's a lot of people that will help you as soon as you're ready. But when you're ready, that doesn't mean you're going to get a pair of Jordans, a Walkman, a brand new fuzzy blanket to lay in bed with. No, when you're ready, you're going to start at the bottom like I did. Well, on my last day, if you would have told me, Wes, to mop your damn floor 7 times a day, and then you're going to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and that's all you get, I would have been like, sign me the fuck up.
Yeah.
When you're at the bottom and you're ready, it doesn't matter what you're told, you'll do it. The problem is we need to speed up the process and help these people get there, because the more these people show up and help them, the longer you're delaying it. And they're delaying it for their own gratification, because they're getting something out of giving. They think they're giving back, but they're really harming.
Yeah, dude, beautifully said, man. And you had me thinking, my entire dissertation was written on addiction. And I looked at it through all these different lenses: biological, psychological, socio-cultural, developmental, spiritual. But there's something where it's like, it's that internal spark when you finally get to a place where you go, I am willing to do anything different with my life than rather to continue this, man. And you watch, all these people that are consumed by it. And you brought up an interesting point where you said, look, there's choice involved in some level. Could be unconscious, could be subconscious, could be conscious. And the idea is, can that person become aware of what they're doing and start to take ownership of it instead of perpetuating it, man? And then I was going to say real quick, Matt, like, I reflect a lot on what I went through. And I think addiction is a powerful, powerful energy. I almost view it like a sword. And when it's unwielded and you don't know how to work it, you end up hurting others and hurting yourself. When you wield it, dude, addiction, the same energy that had me copping drugs, all that addiction energy was, I'm going to get that by any means necessary. And anything.
And you can put that energy into anything, because like my girlfriend mentioned a few weeks ago, in referring to someone in her life, have you ever realized how hard, okay, I know that you use drugs, but I was a junkie. Whereas from morning to night, I had to get high. If you think about the process it takes for an addict or an alcoholic to keep that going, to hustle, to steal, to get the supplies, to keep the liquids, the fluids, to make the drugs, to get the drugs, to get a hold of someone to bring you drugs, or to have to travel to meet the drugs, to get the drugs, to find a safe spot. It is a huge process. If you were to put even a quarter of that energy into staying sober, and your life would be super simple. And that's what I realized. We put so much energy into the actual routine or ritual, from the moment that thought hits your head to get the drugs, to search it out, to find it, to get home. Before you know, it's been 7 damn hours, and you're finally home doing the
I know, man. I know. And I tell all these kids, I'm like, dude, when I finally channeled it, I finished my bachelor's, I finished my master's, I got my license as a counselor, I got into a PhD, I built this fucking center. I'm still an addict. I've just channeled that shit to.
Well, we're always going to be, Wes. We're always going to be. I argue about this one too. People say I'm recovered. Well, you're never not, because the minute you think you're recovered is when you're going to find out that thing's going to crawl up on your back again. We're never recovered. We're always recovering. And I tell people that a lot. We are always going to be recovering. Don't ever get it twisted. Think you're safe.
Yeah. And brother, so walk me through, man. So 20, get me to.
21, I tried crack cocaine. It was instantaneous. Within 1 year, I'm walking around. And now, mind you, I don't give you too much, but like I was a successful gang member. Not even though I didn't want to do it, I was successful. Sold drugs, collected drugs. Was very, very active in my gang because I needed to be that one that stood out. I have an ego complex, so I had to stand out and shine, despite not wanting to do it. So I struggled with that while selling drugs. I tried crack cocaine. Within 1 year time, my life went to a zero smoking crack cocaine. I would steal from you, my mother, my child, your child. Anything you had to go. I didn't give two fucks who you were. If I could get into a church, I'd steal the gold cross on the mantle for crack. Crack destroyed my life. It destroyed me. My last day smoking crack, I had peed in my pants. I had traded my brand new Air Max for Jordans. I forget what I had. I had traded them to the drug dealer. Mind you, they didn't even want them. They took them just to see me walk around barefoot.
Yeah.
I had peed in my pants because I'm more interested in smoking crack. I'll never forget trading a Yachtmaster Rolex. It's about $7,000 stainless steel Rolex. I traded it for a 20 piece of crack and smoked that piece of crack so willingly. And I remember that was when I realized at that moment, God, this is really bad. And I remember calling my mother to pick me up and convincing my mom. I convinced my mom to pick me up, and I convinced her to take me around and buy me some crack just so I would agree to go home and get off the streets covered in urine. Yeah. And I'm sitting in her car, and then she not only gets it, but I'm smoking crack in the front seat of her car. I was a bastard. I didn't. Yeah. That's why I tell people, when you're in addiction, I didn't even know what was right or wrong. I just knew that you were going to get me crack, and I was going to get home, and I'm going to smoke it the whole way in front of you, blow the smoke in your face in your car, and then once I get home, I'm going to try to manipulate a way to get your car and get back to the crack spot.
And
so I went through that.
Yeah. It's by any means necessary. It becomes a fixation to everything.
And if I have to get physical or manipulative, it doesn't matter. I will do what I have to do. That's why people don't get it when you're trying to help these people. They're manipulating you. They're not, and at the same time, it's not really their fault, because when they're in that state, they don't know what the fuck they're doing other than they're hustling for drugs. Right. And for you to help them, you're doing them the disservice.
Yeah.
So mind you, smoking crack, I finally got off of crack because my friend had the bright idea to show me how to inject crystal meth, which took me on a whole nother boomerang whirlwind journey down the meth lane. But I will say this, doing meth, I had at least about a year or two of having some fun and, painting the house 17 different times in different ways, and doing all times of having some crazy sex and painting the house and working on the car at 3 a.m. I got all that tweaker nonsense, had some good times, but then eventually meth started turning my brain schizophrenic. That meth will melt your brain worse than anything.
Yeah.
And the meth, as the years have rolled on, I grew up with real speed, what we call bathtub speed, where it was like P2P dope and crank, snorting it to injecting crystal meth, which that took me on my last trip. And the meth lasted forever. Mind you, I'm picking up prison terms because of my drug behavior. I did one term for 3 years and like 6 months. I came home for 90 days. I do another prison term for 3 years and 8 months. I come home for 6 months, and then I catch my big case. I did a total of 19 years in the California Department of Corrections. My last term was about 12 and a half years, a little shy of 13 years. I was only sentenced to 9, and I turned it into a bigger sentence because I got heavily involved in prison. I got actively involved in all the shit that I shouldn't have.
And when I paroled, the big charge, man, like, so all the charges in the prison time, all drug related?
No. I mean, well, basically, like it or not, it's all around drugs, but they weren't drug related, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it makes absolute sense.
It's all drug driven, but I wasn't caught doing drug activity.
Got it.
So I finally come home from prison in 2013 with a huge, not only I have such PTSD from the joint, and I come home with a pretty serious meth and heroin habit, because in the joint, for the whites, it was really frowned upon for us to be doing meth because your behavior is so erratic. So I started doing heroin, and I come home so shell shocked from prison. Prison was I tell people a lot that I don't care how tough you are. The toughest dude is not, really doesn't know what he's talking about, because to go to the California Department of Corrections on a level 4 yard where I was, it's probably the scariest place in the world.
Yeah, man.
It'll break
anybody. It'll break anybody. Yeah,
but if you say you're that tough and it didn't bother you, you're full of shit, because it's a scary place. And I was probably at the worst of the worst with some of the worst. And the shit I saw and was involved in a lot of shit that I'm not proud of. And I came home with PTSD, a heavy heroin addict to get off of heroin, I switched myself back on meth. But mind you, coming home from prison after that long, the meth has evolved on the street again. It's cut with all types of new chemicals now that my brain is not equipped for, and it's mixed with fentanyl sometimes.
Yeah.
It's mixed with benzos and barbiturates. It's not really speed or methamphetamine anymore. We don't know what it is, but everybody just calls it glass or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm shooting this stuff that's just turning me schizophrenic. It's just literally, it's like doing a liquid shot of schizophrenia.
Yeah, yeah. And tell me, so how old are you at that point, man? So you exited out of prison.
I paroled. I'm 45. I paroled in 2013. So that's 10. I was about 35 years old.
And so walk me through, man. So you're dealing, did you go into, you just went back into drug use?
I went straight into drug use because of my PTSD. My goal was to come home and be sober and kick, but it didn't really work out that way. I went right back into it pretty heavy. And the heroin got a little bad. So like I said, I kind of piggybacked heroin and speed to get on and off each other. And then towards the end, I was really having, I had tried, I asked my mom put me in a detox a couple of times, didn't really work. I went to rehab, didn't work. I violated my parole, went to a rehab to get out of going back to jail. But the best part I like to tell people on my story is my last about week and a half. This is where it gets really serious. My mom, when I was in jail, right before I went to prison, my mother's house was shot up because of my gang activity. Imagine your family's home blanketed with machine gun fire, almost killing your mom because of my behavior and my choices. So I go to prison. My mother moves into a nice local, like a suburban community called Santa Clarita. Her and my father bought a nice little mansion, a 5-bedroom mansion, probably costing close to $1 million. Yeah. I paroled home into the house. Sorry about that. No, I paroled into this house. Now my drug addiction evolved, the meth. I started renovating my mom's house without her permission. And when you're tweaking at the level I was tweaking, I mean, I'm walking around with boxers, 80 pounds soaking wet with Doc Martens on and a headband with a light on it, a tool belt. It's 3 a.m. I've been tearing the stairs apart since, I don't know, 2 p.m.
Here's what I want to know. What are you listening to? What music are you doing at that point?
Bro, at that point, I'm listening to Iron Maiden, Pantera, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And at the same time, I got a Bluetooth speaker that would punch holes in a lowrider that's just blaring every morning. My neighbors are all calling my parents. Everybody's like, what? People are lining up to watch. This is now a spectacle, watching this little light in my head bounce around out all the windows. My parents are cowering on their couches downstairs. I've now destroyed their $1 million home from the stairs to the top. They didn't go upstairs for years because of what I did. But in my head, I think I'm renovating the house.
Right.
I'm Tim the Toolman Tweaker Taylor at that point. I'm running around with a bandsaw at 2 a.m. and fucking just doing home modifications that look like something out of the fucking the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And, I got toasters hooked up upstairs to the landing, and there's a coffee pot hanging from the ceiling because it looks good. I mean, it's insane, Wes. At this point, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm only able to be lucid for about an hour a day, which is when I have to fucking clean up to escape out the front door in my car, which I don't know why they never popped the tires in my car.
Yeah.
To go to the connection to get more dope. And at this point, my behavior was so violent on the streets. I'm one of those dudes that when I do meth and heroin, I focus on sex for about an hour and a half. After that wears off, I'm one of those dudes that will rob you and take everything you got. I used to walk into Walmart and just push TVs out the door and dare that little greeter to confront me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, the dealers were like, they wouldn't even answer. People would stop answering the phone for me. People wouldn't come to the door. I would bang on the doors at the dealers' houses. I would wake their family. I mean, I was such an asshole that you would fucking go on vacation just not to answer my call.
Yeah.
Because they said, if I show up at your door at 3 a.m. and I need dope, I'm not leaving till you give it to me, and I might break into your house to get your stash.
Yeah.
So people at this point were just giving me 20 sacks just to like, here, Mohawk's coming, get him the fuck out of here.
Right. Yep.
And so this last week, I must have accumulated about a 16th of dope or more. And I'm at the point in my last couple of weeks where I'm scared. I know that I'm losing my mind. I don't know how to climb out of it. And I'm in a pretty low place. I'm in a hole. Mind you, like I've been saying about every addict, my parents have stopped helping me. They haven't kicked me onto the street, but they won't even speak to me. There's no money. There's no food. I'm living upstairs in a room that I've torn down to the floorboards. The drywall's off the walls. The ceiling has gunshots in it because I've been shooting my gun that I saved through the roof. Cops have responded. I'm in a room that's torn down to the bare. Looks like a room that it's fit for a trap house in South Central.
Yeah.
And I kept doing dope for about 2 weeks. And on the second week, I remember I had been praying for 2 weeks as I do shot after shot of dope. I'm praying to God and Odin. I believe in Jesus and I also believe in my heritage. And I've been praying to both these people, just please. I don't know how to stop. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm scared I'm going to lose my mind. My family's over. I have no friends. My parents have me locked in a closet room upstairs. I had no lighting system. I had the light from my cell phone and a little headlamp I would use for a light to make my dope in a spoon and slam it. I was begging God and Odin, please make this stop. God, for 2 weeks, I'm just desperately praying in between shots of dope that I'm doing while I watch porn. And I think I'm fucking, I'm still trying to upgrade the house, but I'm praying and I'm praying.
Yeah.
And I was in that dark place that I tell everybody you really got to get to. And this one day I did 17 shots of heroin and meth mixed on and off together throughout the day. The last shot, I know this is probably bad, but this is my truth and I'm going to say it because I know you run a youth center. So if you want to edit this, I get it. But I did a shot. My last shot was in the vein on the top of my private area.
Yeah. Yeah.
I shot on my penis and nothing worked.
Yeah.
There's blood dripping out of all these veins, 17 shots. And I was doing and I'm not missing the veins either. So I'm actually injecting into my veins. I'm not getting high. Nothing's working. And after that shot, I put the needle down and I'm like, I wasn't smart enough to realize that my prayers had been answered. All I had to do was act on it.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there in a dark room and I'm filthy. I'm sweaty. I'm covered in, I've probably shit my pants. There's pee in my boxers and I'm sitting in this room. And I finally came to enough to realize, damn, wait a minute, it's not working. 17 shots is enough to kill a fucking horse.
Yeah.
It could kill a full-grown horse of heroin and meth at that level. And I'm doing full needles. I'm not just doing a little bit. I'm doing a full needle of everything. And I finally realized this, and I'm like, I sat there and I'm like, wow, it's not working. And I'm like, fuck. So I banged on my door and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm ready. Whatever the fuck you want me to do, whatever you need me to do, please. I don't want to live this way. I don't know how to make it stop. I don't have the tools. I've been to rehab, but I don't understand rehab because I've never paid attention. Basically, I'm ready to pay attention. What do you want me to do? And my mom, this little beautiful lady, runs up the stairs and says, all right, let's get you fucking help.
Dude.
And she said, you can't use drugs in our house anymore from this moment on. And I said, I don't give a shit. I mean, I'm out of breath. I'm exhausted. I am literally spiritually, mentally, and physically broke.
Yeah.
Broke. Mind you, I had to go through it on my own with no assistance, like I keep telling people. I had to get that place of desperation. I had to be desperate. And I said, I don't care what you want me to do. Let's do it. My mom helped me. We had to, you have to go on a waiting list to get in some treatments or detoxes and shit. And every Friday until I got into a facility, she would show up with Sullen clothing because she knew that I loved that clothing before I was a dirtbag.
For real.
She would show up with bags of this stuff every Friday and be like, hey, can you make it till next Friday? And I'm like, yeah, I can do it, Mom. I can do it. Every Friday until I was into rehab. Even in rehab, she'd show up with these bags of clothing. And it helped me get little milestones. Dangling that carrot after I've already hit the bottom helped me.
Yeah.
From Friday. And then I remember when I got to 9 months of sobriety, she said, okay, here's your last bag. Go get that year on your own and bring me something.
Yo.
And I did it. And that year turned into where I'm at now. In 2 months, I got 5 years.
Brother. Yeah. Matt, man, you're gonna bring tears to my eyes, and it's your story, and I know that we don't know each other super well, but there are so many parents that need to hear what you just said, and
they need to hear
people. And dude, and I got parents that I love and I care for deeply, and I watch them want to help their kids. Yeah. But to hear what you just said, because there's your mom who loves you desperately and would do anything for you. But what you needed at that moment was for her to not do anything to stand in between you and the dark pits of hell, and for you to get to that place. Because if she would have come up and gave you any relief or respite from that space, you would have had the energy to keep going.
That's what I tell people, that you showing up to a bunch of addicts on the streets, giving them clean needles, they need to hit that spot where the needles don't work. They need to hit that spot where they might catch a disease because you're living in a disgusting area. It's not, these addicts need to hit that spot, because if my mom would have come up the stairs and gave me $40, desperate or not, I would have saw that $40 and I probably would have been out the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a very dangerous place to an addict. Like, you know what I mean? Like, thank God I was at the place where I was willing to do anything. And she, like you said, she held off for those few weeks and didn't help me, no food, no nothing. And I had to hit that bottom to where I realized on my own that I'm ready. Because I tell people all the time, You can't get sober for your mom. You can't get sober for your kid, your girlfriend, the job, the house, the car. You can't. You have to do it for yourself. And when you do it for yourself, that's when you realize by proxy that I'm actually doing it for my mom. I'm actually doing it for my kid. But the decision has to be from you, regardless, because a lot of the times people get sober and they think, well, I'm going to get the family back. I hate to tell you, brother, but I want to say about 70% of the time you don't get the family back, and you still got to keep trucking.
Yeah.
So I tell people some of the times we're blessed with the blessings of recovery that we can earn those places back with our family and our kids. But be prepared that they don't owe you that. And you might have caused a lot of damage to where they're not coming back.
Right, but so you still got to be at the place where you keep going and you do it.
You have to be in a place because I'll share some with you. I have a 23-year-old son I've been desperate to reconnect with. When he was 4 years old, I dropped him off at daycare, and I was carrying a gun around because I was actively gangbanging. I used to hide the gun in his diaper bag, and I remember dropping him off, and I remember leaving, pulling that gun out, putting it back in my, because I get pulled over. Cops necessarily aren't looking in your diaper bag.
Yeah.
And I realized, wow, I've been using my son to hide a gun. And I dropped him off to, after that, I called his mom and I said, I can't do it no more. I'm sorry. I'm checking out. I went to prison right after that and I signed away my rights. Well, my son has never really come around. I talk to him once in a while now, only on Instagram. I don't even have his phone number. He's a 23-year-old man. Lately, he watched my podcast on Soft White Underbelly. And lately, he's finally coming around to realize, wait a minute, maybe now I need to listen because my dad's kind of proved it. But it took fucking damn near 20 years, brother.
Yeah.
Sometimes the damage we cause is not going to be fixed just because you decided you want to get sober. Well, hey, great that you want to be sober, but the rest of us in this world know how to act right.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't accept. They don't give you the amends you're looking for. And you have to be prepared to continue on sobriety for yourself.
1,000%. And you got to know, well, you mentioned the almost, I don't want to call it a paradox, but it's the idea that I like this Ram Dass. He was a Harvard psychologist, and he went on a big spiritual journey. But he says, I work on myself to help others, and I help others to work on myself. But he never says I work on somebody else, because he says you can't do another person's work. So by you working on yourself, it inherently helps others around you. But you got to keep working on yourself. And I'm a firm believer that if you keep doing that with pure intention, which is this is the only thing I got any fucking tangible control over to begin with. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to become the best person I can. I'm going to do it for me. Then I think all of the abundance and beauty will show back up in your life in the ways that you need at the time that God has for it. But it might not be on your timeline.
Yeah, like there's a bigger plan than us, and like what we think we need might not be what God, Odin, whatever you want to believe in.
Yeah.
Like there's a bigger plan in fate than we have any hand in. So it might not be the way you want it, but it might be the way that it's supposed to be.
Matt.
So I tell people what you just said is like, it's almost like our 12th step. Our 12th step in recovery is to be of service. It's to be of maximum assistance to ourselves by way of others. So like you said, my goal is to be an example to where I help you, but by proxy, this is a selfish program. By proxy, even with the amends, I'm not doing the amends for you, brother. Believe that or not. It's good that I'm looking at you and saying, I'm sorry for my behavior. How can I make it right? At the same time, that's more for me to clear my conscience and to clear my inventory so I can be a better person.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, our goal is to be of maximum service, like when it comes to helping other people, because just like you said, by proxy, we are helping ourselves.
Absolutely, man. The person you help, the person you heal. When you help others, when you show up, when you do that, the person you inherently heal is you. So it's ultimately selfish, and there's no pure altruism that doesn't come with that, but it's like it's so reciprocal. And then I sometimes think about the idea that like there is no separation. We are one another, and you're just me living a different life. And anything you do to another human being, you are simultaneously doing to yourself. That's karmic universal shit, that it's like if you're doing that to somebody, on some level you're doing it to yourself. So when you start to do these acts of kindness and you show up, you're doing it. Matt, tell me this, man. I got a lot of parents, I got a lot of young people who listen to this podcast. And I think what's important, you said some shit when we talked on the phone about like, look, man, we call it gangster shit. I'm not going to try and tell another young person what to do with their life. I'm not going to try and come at homie and be like, look, you got to quit smoking weed. You got to quit doing this. But I think your voice is really important. And so if you have this platform to talk to these young people, because so much is going on, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, self-harm, you know, all types of DSM diagnosis and stuff like that. Where do you, if you could encourage these young people to do something in terms of taking care of themselves holistically, what do you feel like that is, man?
Well, do you want me to explain how I explain it to you first so they can hear it from me?
Fuck yeah.
So the way I put this is like, I call it, like, I'm just going to keep it gangster. There's only one way to deal with this. When I was a kid, just like most kids, you're not going to hear it from me when I'm trying to give you advice. You're definitely, kids are not, they don't subscribe, nor do they even entertain the whole scared straight shit. That shit is a misconception. You can't be tough and scared out of kids. Kids are going to do what they want, regardless. Like I learned with my stepkids that are toddlers, they do what the fuck they want, regardless of where we're at, what we're doing. At the same time, that scared straight shit's just not going to fly. They're more inclined to push back when you do that. Even when you think you're going to have a nice set of talks and think they're going to listen, they're more inclined to still do what they want. What I like to tell parents and kids, let me sit down and tell your kids and you what will happen. I come from a different perspective where, like, I didn't listen. None of my friends listened. So let me let you know about, should you want to be tough, which is cool. Being tough and being a gangster and a drug addict and doing drugs and selling drugs, that's awesome. I did it. Didn't work out well. So let me give you the necessary steps. Let me give you the tools you can put in your toolbox. So when you choose this life, let me let you know what happens when you get arrested, how you call your mom. Let me know what it's like when you do a 22-day processing stint in the LA County and you're sleeping on a floor, having to take a poop and a piss in front of grown men, and you're sleeping next to a sweaty bum. Let me let you know the steps through processing in the county system so you know how to get your bed quicker and your cup of coffee quicker. Let me let you know what happens when the cops arrest you, how you should conduct yourself when they put you in a holding tank. Let me give you all these tools, because should you want to embark on that life, you need to know how you need to conduct yourself. I can't stop you from doing what you want to do. More than likely, you're probably not going to listen to that speech. But you might be more, let me at least give you the tools to prepare yourself for that lifestyle should you choose it.
Brother, and what all you're doing is dropping knowledge and truth. And you're looking at this kid and you're saying, and that's kind of how we approach shit, man. It's like, look, you have ultimate free will. We tell these people, nobody can control your behavior but you. But let me give you my journey, what I've seen, what I've been through. Let me give you truth. And then what you decide to do with your vessel and your life will always be up to you. But hopefully you can learn something from my journey. And then we come back to, look, do you want to be the wise fool or the wise man? The wise man learns from others' mistakes. I was the wise fool. I had to go through it myself, man.
I was too. And someone asked me, I think they asked me on the Soft White Underbelly, would I change anything if I could? And I said, no, I wish, I would love to say I would change it and go be the lawyer or the doctor or have stayed in the U.S. Navy and have been a successful LA fireman after the service. But the bottom line is I ended up here. So I don't want to change shit, because I wouldn't be able to even be talking to you right now and helping someone if I did change all that.
And Matt, I believe, brother, I think this is just one of the first contacts that we're going to have. I appreciate you more than I could ever express. Like I said, homie, I thought I'd never hear back from you. I was like, I found your Instagram. I shot it out and I was like, look, man, I'm Dr. West. I run this youth center. And dude, that night you came back and your response was, dude, if my story can help any of these kids, I'm there. And
I was telling you on the phone, I don't have the luxury of being in a Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous meeting that much anymore. But I tend to be of service by using social media. And if you took the time to listen to my podcast, you bet your hairy ass that I'm going to sit there and respond to you. That's how I can help. If you came on my journey and listened to me, I have everything in me to respond to you and help you as well. I mean, I get some weird messages that I just ignore, but you know what I mean? if you listen to me and if you're like on my journey and thanking me and wanting some help, bro, I'm sponsoring people using social media right now.
Beautiful.
I'm able to touch people in England, Great Britain, because they've listened to my podcast and wanted help with recovery. And a crackhead in England is no different than a crackhead in California. A meth head, a tweaker in France ain't no different than a tweaker in California. We're all the same.
Yep. Matt, man, I can't say it enough, brother. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for your time, for your energy, for your story. And if people want to reach out to you, Instagram is the best way, man.
Instagram. I mean, I have a Facebook, but I tend to keep my Facebook more. We have to have been on an intimate level like me and you to be on my Facebook. I don't go on Facebook.
Gotcha.
I keep that with people I personally know. Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me.
And what's your Instagram? I'll put it up there.
Mohawk Matt _SFV.
Beautiful. Brother, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure. And I'm always here if you need me.
Rock and roll.